Thanks everybody for coming back for another week. A record week last week. It looks like you all are very interested in doing RAG, so we're following up with that. Seeing that that's the content you're interested in, that's the content we're going to focus in. And one of the problems with RAG, and I talked about it pretty heavily last time, is getting the right data in RAG. If you push a whole bunch of data into the RAG, that's fine, but you may find the wrong data. What today is all about is we're going to talk about something that David put together that I'm very excited to share that shows you how to collect RAG data from crawling the internet and capturing just the data you need, not everything, all the HTML tags and whatnot that's just going to mess up your data. And so, David, can you walk us through what you made?
Yeah, happy to. And just want to disclaim, this is nothing that I've done. This is using a technology, open source. It's called Craw4AI. They have built this, and all I have done is just piggyback off of the back of their technology to demonstrate and show you. At the very least, you'll walk away with a great and fantastic tool today that will serve multi-purposes. So you'll be able to, clean and scrape URLs, one URL at a time, or you can feed it a batch of stuff in and off to the races you go. So there'll definitely be something for you. But more importantly, what I'm about to show you and share with you you can take this code sample that I'll give you today, and you can retrofit it into any low code, no code platform. You could, if you're a programmer, you can turn around and create a class out of this so that you could call it in your current or existing application. The point here is this is going to fit in the middle of your process. And this is piggybacking off of what Sean had showed last week. So we were talking about QDRAN and vector databases and inserting and chunking and all this other stuff into it. But this is the prerequisite step. This is the piece that you should consider right before you do something like that, if you are taking information or scraping information off of the internet. So the mileage is going to vary. There's some tweaking, some tugging, some pulling on all of this. But let me get into this brief 10-slide presentation, and then I'll show you a demo. And Sean, feel free, if you got anything to add in the middle of it, just jump on in. I may not have covered every single aspect of it, so we'll go from here. So you might be asking, well, why do I, what's wrong with my current RAG model, or what's wrong with just, grabbing a source or a URL and sticking it in? And there's technically nothing wrong, because for the most part, it's functional. But over time, as you do this again and again and again, you're filling up your hoppers with about 60 to 90% with a junk. And all that's going to do is accumulate and have a performance hit for you down the road. And nobody wants to have or deal with performance problems. And cleaning something after the fact is way, way harder than cleaning it up as you go. And so this is really the whole key point about the problem rather, that we're trying to solve here, because it's just not fun going in after the fact and dealing with something at scale. And when I say at scale, I mean, it's painful to say the least. I'll show you one example of one use case, and then I want you to think of all of a sudden over a period of 6 months, you've got this bot that's going out there scraping stuff, and you've got thousands, tens of thousands of examples of this. And then that's the scale I'm talking. All right. So here's Craw4AI. It is cleaning your data so that you can ingest it into vectors. So here is a article title. Imagine an article. So let me go over here to the news. I'll pop open this, I don't know, randomly pick this CNN article, right? And so you got all this noise, all this advertisement, all this junk floating around the top here. Then you get into the title. We've got some videos. We got some more ads on the side. Then we finally get into the meat and the potatoes, another ad. Anyway, it's just obnoxious. The graphics nice, but as you go from article to article to article, you'll just see this happening again and again and again. And then, of course, you get more junk and more feeding, trying to, keep you into the machine. And so all of this, unfortunately, gets sucked up into your vectors, and this can become a real problem over time. I said I'd show you something, but just let me bring this back real quick. Let me open it up in a new tab. I'm going to right click to view the source of this page. This is all the code, and it's not all of it because there's even links to other code. So look at the scroll bar on the side of my browser. Look at the vast number. I don't know if you can see this. Probably not because it's so small. On my screen on the very extreme left side, there's line numbers. If I scroll all the way to the bottom, there are 11,139 rows to this HTML tag, which is at the very end. So 11,000 rows of code and data. And look at the scroll bar. Not only are the rows that much, but there's a scroll bar on the already bottom of my screen, which means somewhere in here, sorry about flipping around here. I'm making my own self dizzy. But this code just goes all the way from right to left and top to bottom. It's just huge, absolutely enormous. So this is a problem, and this is the problem that we're trying to solve here. So if we go back over here to this presentation here, what might this look like in say a pipeline where you're cleaning your data? So the first thing, it starts off with the URL, the problem, right? And we just went through all of that. And then I told you about early on from the onset about this application called, or open source application called Craw4AI. Now, if you're interested in looking more about this, just go to Google, search Craw4AI, and somewhere down here you'll find, looks like some documentation here. It looks like this is one of the pages, but this is, let me see if I can find the actual homepage for it. Yep.
Well, you do that. I mean, the value of what open source brings to the table when you're trying to solve a problem is immense. And fortunately, you have so many tools now at your disposal with AI to find these projects and implement them quickly. I know just this week I was playing around with Jellyfin, and I spun up an environment and installed it in like less than 5 minutes now. So the distance for non-coders and non-technically special people to do this type of thing has been dropped significantly because AI does know how to do it. And you could just say, hey, create me a script. If you remember last week, that's what I did. I don't know how to set up uh, Quadrant, but AI does. So I could just have it do it for me.
Yeah, no, that's an absolutely great point too. The plethora of solutions that are out there on the negative side is just there's so many of them. It's literally every day like drinking from a fire hose. But there are a few out there that catch your attention, and this is one of them. This is one of the ones to where you would probably miss it, but when you need it, oh man, it is like the best thing ever because of what it can do. So this, unfortunately, is the homepage for it. It is docs. Well, you can just go to crawl4ai.com and it'll redirect you over to the docs. Also, this is my instance. So you see I have C4AI, davidsoden.com, and then it kicks you over into the docs. So the homepage of your server when you light this up, and I'm using Easy Panel, which is real similar to what Sean was just talking about. You can download Docker instances and just light stuff up automatically. And that's what the Easy Panel does for you. It allows you to just go out to the repo, say, hey, listen, I want this piece of software installed, and boom, it does it. And then you just give it a custom URL and off to the races you are. And that's how hard it is now to install this. You don't have to go through all this crazy rigmarole of normally what a developer would be and to deploy all this stuff. It's just right there front and center for you to use. So in any event, if you're looking to do that, again, crawl4ai.com will take you to the main page, and notice that it is #1 trending there. So lots and lots of uptake on all of this. And then I have this accelerator code for you. If you go to the repo, the presentation that you see that I'm giving here, linked it into the repo so that you can go back and forth between the two of them. But the main star of the show that I'm going to show you today for the demo is this code. And I personally did not write one line of this. I used a kind of a product owner perspective, and I used Claude AI or Claude Code to create this. So it wrote all of the code. It didn't do it right the first time. I had to go through maybe a total of 15 revisions because of things that it got wrong and tweaking and noodling. So unfortunately for me, I do know Python, but I don't know it to this extent. Like there's some regex stuff in here that just, it would take me 2-3 weeks to figure that regex portion of it out. So even though I went through several iterations of this, it took me just maybe 2 hours at most that I spent playing with this. And now I've got a great tool. But like I was saying, you could use this in a plethora of use cases from inside of N8N in a code node. You can integrate this code into your existing code base, make it a class, and then call it, make it just a function within your app. Lots and lots of utility for all of this. But anyway, the point is you're going to run this before you pop it into your vector database. And the architecture I just showed you, what this looks like, that's the server endpoint. That's this guy over here that I showed you. It doesn't look like that, like what's happening behind the scenes in the code, but this is like an example payload that you see on the right side, the Python client. It's throwing all of this code in here. And if I jump back over to the code base and we go all the way to the top, you can see the importing up here. We've got all of this other stuff that's coming up. The only thing I will call out when you download this, you'll have to, install. I would suggest use Docker or use something like EasyPanel for the server. And then you just put the URL up here. Now you can secure this down a little bit further by providing an environment variable. And if you just give it the API token and net, then you'll just include it in the code base here. Otherwise, you can just omit, comment out this line, and you're good to go. Nothing to really stress over on that part. So the key features of this script that I had Claude Code help me write is it does smart naming by extracting key pieces of information out of it and formats it in such a way. Now, one of the things that you can do, now if I was to redo this and use this in a code environment setup, rather than have it provide Markdown, I would have it output it in a JSON format so that it's really easy to programmatically select what I need to do, and then send it right along into the next step, which is what we talked about earlier, inserting this as a payload into your vector database. The only step that you're missing right there between the insertion and running this through Craw4AI is you're going to have to run it through an embeddings large language or language models like OpenAI or whatever. There's a plethora of even open source ones. And there's different flavors of it. Typically, I would recommend maybe a medium or a small. If you've got a lot of big stuff, maybe a large, but in any event, what you do is you just convert the text, the human readable text, into the vectors. And if you've never seen a vector and it sounds like Greek to you, it looks like Greek. It honestly looks like latitude and longitude coordinates, if you've ever seen one of those. So you'll just take human readable text and then you'll get a bunch of these weird looking coordinates. And those are the vectors. And that's what gets sent into the vector database. It means something to the computer, but to us humans, not so much. But anyway, that's all you really need to do to get this thing working in the full scale. And if you're interested in seeing an end-to-end process, Sean and I are more than happy to put one of those demos together for you. But we figured it's a lot easier to take this in bite-sized pieces to understand it. That way you'll have a better appreciation for the componentry and what is there. Even if you're lost and a little bit confused, Sean and I are available on LinkedIn at any time to reach out to us, ask us questions. Obviously, you can hire us to help you with whatever it is that you're looking to do. But nonetheless, you'll just continue to tune into these podcasts because I'm sure sooner or later we'll cover what you're looking for eventually. If you're going to process a single demo, you'll use this aspect of the code that is written. I just took a very small samplings of that. It's much, much larger than that in the code base, but this is the option for the single. And then here's the option for the batch. And essentially all you do is provide a clean text file. Each row or each line in the text file should have its own distinct URL, and it'll go through a list of whatever you provide it and go through and clean all of that up for you. And then you can write another process to batch process all of these markdown files from there. Typically what I do is I would just insert them maybe into a staging database or a staging directory. On your Azure or even your AWS, they have these workflow optimization processes, also first in, first out type based technology where it's a message queuing type system. That way, if the system gets overloaded, it can just batch process, but it always knows to go to the pickup directory or the pickup database to pick up the last row. When it's done processing, it either moves it out, moves it somewhere else, and or just deletes the file. And then typically it will write a log that it's completed and whether or not it was successful or not successful, and any error number or batch number appropriate to all of that. So hopefully this gives you a little bit better idea. But here's the key takeaway. All this rambling to get to this main key point. You're going to get a 78% on average reduction of the size of whatever it is that you're trying to scrape. The other side of it is that there's consistency in the output. I'm using Markdown. I said earlier we could do JSON. The other thing is, and this is the real ultimate takeaway, 10x performance on your RAG, because you're getting rid of all of the bloat and you're not continuously throwing thousands and thousands of lines of code into something that is just absolutely unnecessary. So you can transform your RAG pipeline today by using this script. I'm going to show you an example of it. And before I do, let me prep what I need to do. I am going to, let's use the NPR one. I'm going to copy this link address. You're going to say something, Sean?
Yeah, while you're doing that, I wanted to say, an example of this, what I've been doing with RAG is creating doc books, right? So when you're in the process of documenting your code, when you're documenting your solution, using AI for that, by the way. But when you do, you can then take those, convert it into maybe a Markdown or in DocBook format, and be able to load it into RAG. The consistency of the data and reducing the bloat means that it will be higher performant, it will be better. So it's not just this script, is the point I wanted to make. When you're doing RAG, garbage in, garbage out. If you pump a whole bunch of garbage in there, that means you're going to be spending more to query it. It's going to take longer to query it, and you'll have less accuracy. So many people talk about having dual RAGs. So you will have a non-performant RAG and a performant RAG, and then you'd have human curation as you go along. This is the lifecycle management I was talking about on the last call, so that your people can use the RAG as it exists with all the garbage data. They can then curate it as they use it. And once it's curated, it goes into the quality or performant RAG. And that over time, then your data will be cleaned up. Now, in this scenario, it's just taking the data, removing all the advertising, and focusing really on just the content to scrape.
Yep, that is absolutely correct. And the one thing, well, I guess it wouldn't apply there to that one. Okay. One of the URLs, I lost my train of thought. One of the URLs that I have picked up from this, I don't know, I just picked this one right here, this NPR document right here. And so this is the one, this is the URL that I'm going to be using. So I am going to kind of contrast and compare. I'll go all the way to the end. We got 938 rows. And again, it goes right to left, top to bottom. It's just absolutely huge. So let's just call this round to 1,000-ish almost rows on this URL. And so let's drop this out. Now here's the script that's running. I'm going to choose number 3 to exit. So when you get ready to install this, and I'll open this up real quick. So I appreciate that some of the folks watching this may or may not fully be adept on how to run some of this stuff. So if you download the script, again, you'll have to fill this part out. You'll have to have the server. You'll have to get that up. But all this import, so import requests, import JSON, time, and whatever. The main one should be, and only would really be this one, so requests. So you might be wondering, what do I do with something like that? So you just do pip, which is the package installer pack for Python. And you just do pip install Can't type. Pip install request. I've already have it installed. It's no big deal, but you'll have to run that first. Once you run that, then all you're going to do is you're going to run Python. And if you're on a Mac, you'll do Python 3 space and then crawl4script.py. And when you do that, you'll come back to pretty much what you were seeing before I did all of that. And with any luck, if it's successful, you'll get something that looks like this. So we're only going to do a single URL today. So I'm going to choose number 1 and hit enter. And now it's going to ask me for the full URL, which I'm going to paste in that copy of that URL that's there. Now, keep an eye on the left side because this is where the script is. But once it does the scraping, it's going to make a markdown document and keep the same name of the title of whatever the document is or the news article, .md for markdown. And then we'll get to see the output of that. So now it's crawling and it's doing its magic. It's grabbing it, it's parsed it, it's in memory. And lo and behold, that quick, it was able to scrape out. Now, remember, this was almost 1,000 lines long. I'm going to pop this open, and we've got some of the unfortunate garbage that did still come through. This is stuff that we don't need there, but by and large, it's much less garbage and junk as opposed to what used to be there. Now, I would say, in my opinion, this did a horrible job of extracting the information because the actual article I honestly don't see in this example. Actually, here it is right here. So here is the main article. So you will capture that, but it looks like it's also capturing a bunch of other stuff from the page. So this is one of these examples where you just have to go back and continue to noodle on stuff. Other examples I've done did a really great job. It didn't do the menu. Now, to kind of walk you through this, just as a quick sidebar.
Well, it did say 78%.
It did, but this was a horrible example. I would say at best, it probably did 50, maybe 40, 50%. Is cleaning, but it shouldn't have had all of that other stuff that was there. I'm trying to get back to the other. So if we go back into the documentation and we go into the advanced content processing, there's this advanced piece of code right here called exclude tags. And so in your source code, every website developer, designer, even if AI is doing it, typically they use tags for very specific things. And in HTML5, it's so much easier and better and cleaner, but you still have these old legacy platforms that are not up to speed, not writing normal up-to-date code. They're still using like the older standards. And so it gets tricky based on what engine is creating this content. And as a result of that, you can't always latch onto or count. So for example, if you create a div tag called navigation or nav, which is industry standard or best practice, and if you have a company that doesn't follow industry standard or best practice, then you can't latch onto something that doesn't exist. So this is where you're going to just drive yourself nuts and noodle on it. But the bottom line takeaway is even at 40 to 50% efficiency, it's much better than zero, because without it, you're definitely going to hit zero. But this was a good example. I'm kind of glad that this did happen, because I like to show that, you know, in reality, things never go as planned. Like there's a lot of clean demos out there and people polish it and do whatever. But when you get to doing it in the real world, in the wild, this is part of being a developer, even if you're not a developer. This is just the way that the cookie crumbles, so to speak, today. You got challenges, you got to work through it, you got to figure out how to work through it. And now you've got to figure out how to talk to AI so that it can help you work through it. And so this is just another thing of honestly where I would pick up, try to continuously noodle on this thing. Over time, this script will get better and better and better. I don't have a need to use this every day, but if this was my job and this is what I needed to do, you bet I'm going to come up with really good and interesting and creative ways to make this script the most efficient thing that has ever been created or produced. So this is, if this is you and this is appealing to you, this is what you'll need to look for. I'm going to pop this QR code up here so you guys can go and download this script and play with it for yourself. And with any luck, you'll be able to execute it there. And if not, definitely reach out to Sean or I on that. Did you want to go ahead and add something to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to put an exclamation point on this. This is a really good example of finding an open source solution and having to make it work for you. And back in the day, you would need a team of developers or an outsourced team to build something like this for you, and it would be a 3 month, lead time you would need. But by the time that you knew you had to have something, to the time that it needed to be used. So now you could do that in a period of 3 days instead of 3 months. Um, and what we're not showing here is with open source, you could take the log output. And with these applications, there's a log, you put it in verbose mode, and then you capture that log, you throw it in the AI and say, hey, I am experiencing this. What do I need to do? So the noodling that David was talking about is in conjunction with AI,
Yep.
right? And AI will tell you, okay, change, X to Y and A to B, and then you should look at this and you should look at that. Maybe there's another, sometimes I'm working with it and it's like, you know what? This particular program that you're working on, it's not going to be good for this. We've kind of figured that out. Switch to this different application, and it may be able to help you. So, there's a lot that AI can do for you in this space.
Yep, absolutely. And one other thing I'll add before we close out on this short follow-up on last week's is that back whatever work you've done up until that point, especially if you're using something like Claude Code that's going to go in and update and change your code. So if you've got something that's working pretty remarkably well, snapshot it, grab a copy, put it off to the side, and then have it iterate on that. Because if it trashes it, and it has done it, just restore the one and just try to maybe take a different prompt or approach to it. But iterate, make a copy, save it to the side, and then obviously clean up your archives. But definitely work with version control when you're working with something like Claude Code or Visual Studio Code and GitHub Copilot or whatever it is that you're using out there. Anything else to add to that?
No, really appreciate it. And I'm sure you all will miss me in the next couple weeks. I am being dragged kicking and screaming into vacation mode. So hopefully I'll be able to catch you all in a couple weeks. And but I'm sure David will hold down the fort. If you have any questions, hit us up on LinkedIn. We'd love to talk to you.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. Have a great day. Bye-bye.